Well, good morning. We're really glad to be here. We're working together quite a bit because our Farming with Arthritis project really works very well with Ohio AgrAbility. So, in fact, we were just again this morning thinking of another thing we could be working on together. So it's been a really good relationship between the two of us. I'm going to start off and just talk a little bit about this OSU Cares about farmers. You can see I have my button. These are little paper stick-on buttons, and we use them when we go out to do the screenings, and then we also give them to people that we've screened, and that's twofold. One is we know whether we've screened them or not, so we don't stop them a second time and ask them to be screened. And the second is, of course, that they're a little bit of a walking billboard for us, and you'll see in a minute that we go out to a lot of community events, particularly county fairs. So we're covering a large geographical area and trying to pull people in. And so it's really important for us not to stop Rob a second time and ask him if he wants to be screened, because people think that we remember them, but we don't. So anyway, you want me to, what do I, just the red button? Okay, great. Maybe not, maybe this way.
There you go.
Whoops, let's go back a second then. Okay, I think that you, everyone who's here knows a good deal about this. We have, most of our farms are family owned. The average age of a farmer in Ohio is a little over 57. I'm guessing that it's pretty similar in Indiana. I didn't look up that number, but I think that's really an important factor. And actually, as you'll see in a minute, we've been looking at women farmers, and they are actually on the average a little bit older than men farmers, males who are farming. I'm not quite sure why that is. Most farms, of course, are multi-generational, and one of the reasons that we've gotten involved in this, I teach in the Occupational Therapy Division. I'm a gerontologist by background, is that, of course, the health of a farmer is critical to the survival of the family business. So it's really very, very important. About a year or so ago, the faculty in occupational therapy, two of us, Dr. Sharon Flynn and myself, got together with about 3 extension agents, educators I should say, in around the state, and put together this proposal. Ohio State has outreach grants. They're called OSU Cares grants, and I had one earlier when I worked on the Universal Design project, so I was pretty familiar with how to put these together. The purpose of our grant, and it grew out of being at the OSU Farm Science Review and noticing how many people were having difficulty with arthritis and just thinking about what we could be doing for them, was to educate the public about prevention and treatment of arthritis, as you can see. One of the first things we did, and Dr. Flynn and my students worked on this for about 6 months or so, developing a screening tool that we could use to identify people who are at low, moderate, and high risk of either having arthritis or developing it in the future. We took these screenings out to a number of agricultural events. Here's our strategy. We're not waiting for people to come to us. And in fact, when we're out, we're not waiting for people to come to us either. We really, I just train the students who are involved in this to go up and say, Rob, could you give us a hand? We're from Ohio State. We're trying to test this arthritis screening tool. And I tell my students, and I'm sure this is true at Purdue as well, there's tremendous goodwill out there in the community, so people are very willing to help us. It isn't just football, they are actually like Ohio State, even beyond that. We're making recommendations to the people that we screen about whether they need to consult a local health care provider, and we've been set up to make referrals to Kent for farmers who need assistance as well. So here's just a little photo of our group here at the Farm Science Review last year. My student Lauren is on here on the my right, and she's demonstrating some things, but we had our materials out and we were scanning people. We were often actually outside, we weren't always inside. And we had fact sheets, we had booklets, other resources. We also went to field days and some health fairs. Here's one of our students talking outside to two people about the screening tool. It takes about 15 minutes. I didn't bring copies, but if you're interested, I can send you. We're in the process of modifying them and making some changes because now we're working with pharmacy, and they had a couple of questions they wanted to add in terms of medication. But basically, it's a self-report at the beginning, so we give people, a pen and a clipboard and let them sit down someplace, usually in the shade, try to urge that, and answer some questions about, do you think you have arthritis? Have you been told you have arthritis? How old are you? Do you think you're overweight? You'll see what people had to say about that. Questions about their daily activities. Are you having, and we took a lot of that from some standardized health forms, but we tried to tailor it to farming activities. And Dr. Flynn comes from a farming family, and her father's actually consulted with us on this. And then finally, some warning signs, particularly around issues about pain and how often you're taking medication. And so we scored those. And on the basis of those scores, it was 1 to 100, as you might guess. Our students would talk with people and say, well, you look like you're in a low risk area, you look like you're in a moderate risk. We didn't see people really in the severe risk area. But then we asked them if they would like to follow up and do our physical fitness screening. So here's a gentleman at the Fayette County Fair, and he is using a device. I didn't bring it with me, but it's a twisting device here. You turn it this way and then this way to see about his wrist strength. And Dr. Flynn is over there noting down how he's doing. And we look at flexibility, some flexibility exercises and some strength exercises. We screen everybody. We have IRB approval to do this. If people say they have chest pains, we thank them. We don't let them go on. One woman, I was just telling Ken at breakfast last year, was over 90, and she said, I feel a little dizzy. I said, stop right now. Do not collapse on my watch. If you want to walk down to another booth, that's fine, but not here. Anyway, so you can see we bring folding chairs. I mean, we're just putting ourselves down wherever we can. This is a tent, actually, which makes it a little bit cooler for us to do things. But we were right up against the turkeys there. But in a very good location to see a lot of people, too. Here's the major thing, and this is not just true of people who are farming. Most people think that arthritis is part of normal aging, right? We all have aches and pains as we get older. That's what people say to me. And there's nothing we can do about it. Or if we can do it, it's taking a lot of medication, and we don't want to take a lot of medication because we're working, because we don't like taking a lot of medication, a variety of reasons. So here are just some results. About 45% of the farmers we interviewed have been told that they had arthritis. But much higher percentage thought they had arthritis. So there's a real gap here between people who think they have arthritis and people who, when they're in seeing their doctor, actually mention it or someone asks them about it. Okay? And to my mind, that's really important. They're not really bringing this up to their healthcare providers as frequently. And likewise, their healthcare providers aren't asking the questions that they need to. So that's one of the things that we hope to be working on. believing that they have arthritis. So as you say, 45% thought they had arthritis, but 2/3 thought they had arthritis. So that's really a big gap. Women were much more likely to think they had arthritis than men. But women in general are more likely to report that they have arthritis than men are. So I'm not sure. Actually, the gap here is actually smaller than you might expect. I'm surprised that 61% of men thought that they had arthritis. But it may be that men who are farming are a little more aware of the risk, or are having more pain. I'm not sure what the reason for that is. But again, only 45% overall are actually talking to a healthcare provider about this. So we looked at a couple of risk factors as well. Being overweight and having significant pain are important markers. And here's very interesting. I don't know if this is a more honest group or not, but 75% of the people that we interviewed said that they were at least 10 pounds overweight. I was really surprised that it was that high, to tell you the truth. Nationally, among people who are 60 and older, and we interviewed people 50 and older, about 70 to 75% say that they're overweight or obese. So, interestingly enough, it was a little closer to that than we thought. Now, one of the problems is we don't know how overweight they were. We don't bring a scale with us. We're pretty sure that nobody would agree to be screened if we had a scale out there. Just thought. So, you know, that keeps us from having quite as accurate information as we'd like to. And pain. In our sample, 50% reported having moderate to severe pain in the past month. But interestingly enough, and nationally among adults who have arthritis, only about a quarter report severe pain. But I thought it was interesting too that another 50%, going back to that first sentence, and that group doesn't report having, in fact, there were people who reported that they had no pain at all in the last month. Now, either they're managing it very well or they don't remember very well. I don't know what the answer on that is, but it was very interesting. At least a quarter said they had had no pain in the last month. Now, maybe, again, that's when we interviewed them, what they've been doing, whether, I mean, I don't know what the factor might be. It suggests to me that farmers may be more tolerant of pain than they've been than people in general are, or they might just say, well, it's part of the job. So I'm not sure.
Can I ask a question on that?
Yes.
I'm just wondering if the time of the year that you're asking the question,
yes,
and the tasks that they're performing in the farms at that time of the year might also influence that.
Right. That's what I'm thinking too. We did most of these in the summer. We did a few in the early fall. Actually, winter is actually a better time. We did do a couple of screenings at pesticide training, so it's hard to say. Yeah, yeah. We should probably code it for. We have the dates, so we could go back and look. That's a good point. And then finally, just, you know, we feel that maybe we don't need to even ask as many questions, that maybe being overweight and being in pain, they're so highly correlated with difficulty in terms of doing daily activities. And what it suggests to us is that we probably need, as our follow-up, to reach more farmers with suggestions about increasing exercise. We all know that that's important here. Controlling weight and managing pain, and that those might be the three-pronged things that we need to really stress. I think, Kent, you are next. Yes. So, Kent, we'll talk a little bit about the AgrAbility Project.
I have to get wired up first. So. I had worked with Meg previously on some universal design issues, and that's a real interest with us at Ohio AgrAbility. And then when I found out that Meg was involved with the OSU Cares About Arthritis project, I called Meg and I said, I really want to be involved. And involved to the point where you just had the training session about a month ago. So where now I've went through that and I can do the screenings as well. Because one of our elements that I would like to do is to be able to use this tool with our AgrAbility clients. And not only those individuals that arthritis is the primary disability, but we're finding a lot of times, especially our clients that are in wheelchairs, arthritis is becoming a secondary disability because of the overuse of arms in their upper torso. So I want to be able to use that screening tool to really determine their risk level throughout their life when it comes to that secondary disability. As most of you already know, AgrAbility, we work with farmers to maintain their productivity who may have a disability. And such a wide range of disabilities. And like I mentioned before, whether it's that primary disability that arthritis has become, or that secondary disability. And that's one of my concerns. I mean, we have clients that have been in wheelchairs for 30 years. I have a client that he's been in a chair for 30 years. He still does a lot of physical activity with his upper body. He climbs a rope to get onto his tractor. So, and he's starting to notice that after 30 years, a lot of that wear and tear on his upper body. Meg mentioned we provide resources about farming with arthritis. The one thing I will say about the arthritis and agriculture booklet, the one thing I hear from every one of our clients that reads that is finally someone's told them it's okay to take a break and rest. And I've had several of our clients that after reading that book have said, you know what, I tried it. And it helps. If I take that half hour or an hour at lunchtime and rest, I can be more productive, I get more done, and I'm not as tired at the end of the day. But we've also had come up with some fact sheets. The arthritis and ag workshops, we're in the process of putting those together throughout the state. And that's where this partnership's really a two-way street. I'm looking at putting together these workshops where we can inform and educate our farmers in our rural populations about arthritis. By doing that, that gives Meg's group a great opportunity to come in and do more screenings, and we can gather more data. The one interesting thing about putting together those workshops, and I think Sandra mentioned it yesterday, you have 2 arthritis chapters in Oklahoma, correct? We have 3 in Ohio. Some like to play well, some don't like to play well. And that's with any typical organization. So I've looked at it from this approach. My sandbox is the whole state. I'll invite anybody in to come play in my sandbox because I've got cool tools and cool toys. And so I've used a shotgun approach when it comes to putting together community events. And if I can gather a group of organizations within a county, whoever wants to play, will play. Whoever doesn't, we're still going to play. And so that's worked out well. And to this point right now, we've got three arthritis and ag workshops that we're putting together. One of them, our first one, is June 8th. Ironically enough, and Bill's going to talk about this in a little bit, it will be an arthritis and ag workshop for Amish. It is in an Amish county. We actually, we got the okay from from the Amish officials in that county. What surprised us, we're going to have it on one of the Amish farms. What surprised us is they came back to us and said, this is a great idea. We want to invite everybody else in the county. So not only is it going to be an Amish hosted event, but they're allowing the rest of the farming community to come in as well because they see the need for that. And that'll be June 8th. So I'm really excited. That will be our kind of our model workshop. And then throughout the year, I know we have 2 more that we're planning. And by having that broad-based community approach, I've got a couple counties where the Arthritis Foundation, they're kind of the cornerstone for putting that event together. I've got a couple of county extension educators that they are the cornerstone for putting these events together. And a couple other counties that they're in the planning process, but it's local civic organizations that are really wanting to get this message out. Also, we're modifying work practices, and you'll see some of those in a minute. Modifying equipment, we've seen a ton of that already in the last 2 days, and you'll see some kind of repetitiveness to some of the modifications that we're doing. The use of assistive technology, and also applying those universal design concepts. One of the things that we focused on was making the farm user-friendly, extending universal design to the farmstead. Typically when you think of universal design, you think of within the home. I always joke, the minute you walk into a Walmart, you are blasted with universal design. Automatic open doors, special walking and working surfaces, signs with not only words but pictures, the whole 9 yards. Why can't we extend those out to the rest of the buildings and the rest of the farm? And so we've worked on that. We work a lot with entrances and accessibility. Here again, the workplace modifications, you'll see some of that. Specialty work areas. Every farm's unique, or they have unique practices. And so we really take that into consideration. We've already mentioned the tools and equipment, and you'll see some of that. And Steve mentioned earlier in one of his presentations, livestock handling can become a huge issue with arthritis. One thing with our clients that we've worked with entrances and accessibility, smooth transitions from one surface to another, even getting from outside to inside a barn. I was at a client's house for an assessment, and one of the very first things that I noticed when we went out to the barn was he opened the barn door, grabbed a hold of the side, and stepped over a 1-foot concrete footing, and then stepped over the other one. And I stopped him and I said, "Do you realize what you just did?" He's like, "What?" I said, "How many times do you come in and out of this barn a day?" I don't know, 10 or 12. So you step over that 10 or 12 times a day. How many years have you lived on this farm? Well, 45 years. I said, have you ever thought about bringing in some crushed stone and creating a smooth transition on both sides of that? Well, I've never thought about that before. Sure enough, I went out there 2 weeks later, and that's exactly what he did. And his first comment was, "I can't believe I stepped over that stupid thing for 45 years. But it created that smoother transition. Anytime we can do remote control doors, or easy to use gates, and even those mobility aids. The picture here, this building is actually 30 years old, and it belongs to one of our clients. And I tease him that I'm going to call him lucky, because he has a lot of health issues, and he has been in several farm injury related incidents. He has some vision impairment because of his histoplasmosis. He has severe arthritis. He rolled his tractor a couple of years ago, and that was about a month of recovery, nothing severe, luckily. But about a year to the date of that, this building originally had, his building's 16 foot tall, and it originally had sliding doors. So you had literally, at the time, 16 foot by 16 foot sliding doors that he had to manhandle. And it was almost a year to the date after he had rolled that tractor that we had a windstorm. And in the process of trying to close one of those doors, the door broke off the track and landed on him, breaking 2 vertebrae, which was about a 6-month recovery time. And he has somewhat fully recovered. But since then, we worked with him on a series of changes, and one of them was to put in overhead doors with remote openers. And here again, same comment that I got. I don't know why for 30 years I tried to manhandle those great big sliding doors when all I had to do was push a button. And so that was one opportunity that we got to help an individual out. Workplace modifications. Anytime you talk universal design or workplace modifications, rocker panel door switches or light switches, lever style handles on doors. I don't know how many farm shops I've been in where the first thing you do is you open the door with that round knob, and the minute they put a lever style knob on there, they love it, and the first thing they say is, I've always got my hands full and now I use my elbow to open the door. When you get in the workshop, cushioned matting, especially in those areas where they're standing or working for a long period of time. You can see here where they've actually got the bar stool where they can move the bar stool onto the matting and sit while they're working. Another key element is location of where you're putting your outlets and your switches. And you'll see that here in this next slide. This was another one of our clients. Number one, he has some arthritis issues. Number two, he's a bit height challenged. He's only about 5 foot tall. And if you notice the workbench in the back, that workbench, beautiful big workbench, it's 3 foot deep. His outlets were clear to the back. So he would literally have to stand up on the rail to reach back. And so one of the first recommendations we gave, why not put those outlets in the front? And so now when he's standing at that workbench, if he wants to plug something in, it's right here, instead of stepping up on it and clear back. The other case with this individual, he had the largest toolbox I have ever seen. I think a NASCAR pit crew should have had this. It was beautiful. I mean, it was a great, big, huge thing. And remember, I said he's only about 5 foot. And this thing was probably this tall. But as I got to looking at his tools, I noticed he had 2 of everything. And one of the questions I asked, why? You have Craftsman tools and you have Snap-on tools. Why? And they were beautifully organized. But he had 2 of everything. And what I found out is one of the guys that worked for him part-time used to work at a local Case IH dealer. And so when he left that job, he took his tools with him and sold them to this gentleman. And so he had 2 sets in this great big huge thing. And basically this is a bay area where he can pull a tractor in or work on it. And this thing was so big, even though it was on casters, you couldn't move it. I mean, it was so heavy, so big, he couldn't see in the top of it. And so one thing I suggested was to kind of scale things down a little bit. You have 2 of everything. What says you can't have 2 toolboxes? Now you can put 1 on each side. And so what he did over the course of about 6 months at some, yes? Oh, okay. So what he did over the course of about 6 months at some local auctions, he picked up some smaller tool chests. And what he did is he separated both those out. Now when he pulls a tractor in, he can put a toolbox on each side. And so now he doesn't have to constantly walk around and go on both sides. He's got a set for each side. Tools and equipment, when it comes to, anytime we can use pneumatic or battery powered would be great. We have guys now that you put a hose reel up, especially close to their workbench, and they start looking at some of these specialized pneumatic tools rather than using the hand tools. We've seen a lot of this over the last couple days. Pipe insulation and duct tape. I always joke, I have seen tremendous things done with duct tape on the farm. But this is a client here that I showed him a couple of things with some pipe insulation and duct tape, and came back about a month later, and everything he could put insulation and duct tape on, he did, to the point where he even put them on he traded and bought a zero-turn mower, and the first thing he did was put the pipe insulation on those handles, because after he had used the buckets and the wrenches and stuff like that, the first thing he did when he got on that mower, it had grips, but just for traction or grip, so he put those on there. Two things came to mind when he did that we, in talking with him, found out. Not only does that help him with his grip, but since he traded mowers to a zero-turn mower, it takes him half the time to mow his yard. So it's increased his productivity as well. Anytime you can modify, add steps, grab bars, that's probably the biggest thing, as long as there's something that they can grab a hold of to get in and out of equipment. I remember growing up, the spin knob, every tractor in the world had a spin knob on it. And ironically, I go out and talk with a lot of guys, and I get in their tractor and they don't have a spin knob on there, but one of their complaints is that they're constantly turning in the field. And they seem to forget that, oh yeah, 20 years ago, that was a popular thing to have, as a spin knob on your steering wheel. Swivel seating or cushion seating. Tuesday, I was just at a client's house. He was all happy. He traded tractors, but he had to show me something. In making the deal to trade his tractor, they were a little bit apart in money between the dealer and the farmer. What made the deal was the farmer told him, all right, I'll take your price, but you're going to add swivel air ride seating into that cab on that used tractor. And that's what made the deal. And he was so happy about it. He had just got the tractor delivered on Monday. I was there on Tuesday. He's got this new to him used tractor that he upgraded, but now it has air ride cushion seating. And he's excited for it to stop raining so he can use his tractor, because previously he was only good for about 2 hours in a tractor at a time. So that was not very productive, because he has arthritis issues, and he does have some chronic back problems as well. And then the last one here, livestock handling. This there on the left, this individual, lucky enough, I hate bank barns. If you know what a bank barn is, it has a top portion and a lower portion. This individual has a rather unique bank barn that it's only built up about 2 feet, and that center section is open. And one of his concerns is when he was still trying to feed, this guy was about 65 years old. Here again, back issues, arthritis. He was still getting in the pen with 40 or 50 sheep with 5-gallon buckets trying to feed them. And that was a real safety concern. So one of the things we did was he was able to put these feeders in, open up that existing wall, and now it's a smooth transition. He doesn't even have to get in to the pen when he's feeding. He can do that all from the outside. He can also feed his square bales, and he doesn't have to lift them up over the feeder. He can literally roll them. He drops them out of a hay mow, and he can literally roll them in there. The other thing he's kind of testing, and you can kind of see in that picture, he's working with some round bales, which sometimes doesn't work real well with sheep. On this side, for this client, during the winter months, during lambing, he would climb up that at least once a day to feed hay. Had grasping issues, even some balance issues as well. So it really became a safety concern. He's in the process right now, and I wish I had a better picture. Just on past this, he has the room where he can build a stair steps with a railing. And so that was one of our recommendations, and he's in the process of doing that. Much like if you saw one of Steve's presentations, the steps for grain bin, it's a lot safer. It's still maybe not the ultimate solution, but at this point it's going to be a lot safer than climbing that ladder every day. And so he's in the process of building that, and I'm hoping he has that done relatively soon so I can take some pictures of that. The one thing kind of, and Meg and I both emphasized, arthritis is not normal aging. It can be prevented and managed. We're starting to see, and talking with some of our clients and even the generation below them, we're starting to see some younger individuals that are involved in their family farm that are starting to develop arthritis just because they've constantly worked on their farm their whole life. The majority of farmers think they have arthritis, but they haven't consulted their health care provider. I've talked to guys that, if you go to a coffee shop in the morning, I can talk to guys that I haven't been to a doctor in 40 years. If I go to the hospital, they won't let me out. I'll be dead. And that's just that mindset that we've got to change. And then Ohio AgrAbility is another resource. And like I said, it's a two-way street. I'm trying to help Meg with getting those individuals for screenings and gathering that information. And then in the process, more severe cases can use us as another resource after they've been screened with Meg's project. So, any questions? Yes, Ron.
The survey, the screening.
Yes.
It appeared that it did not provide any definitive results or results that were not known from arthritis information. So I'm wondering, and certainly you use it as an education tool, but I'm wondering, can it tie back with what you were doing, or maybe both of you, the strength testing and things like that, if that could be stage 1 and stage 2 could be like AT that would help that person with arthritis, where they could actually see the difference.
That is an interesting thought. I had two thoughts this morning, and one of them relates to that, of having some equipment with us that people could just try out, just as we did in the other room, and see how things might work better for them. I think that would be a great idea. And the other is, I was thinking about some of Kent's slides and having some handouts that I could give to people to say, have you thought about modifying, and just have a couple of key things. I think that would be great. I think the only problem I face is that there's competition at the county fairs. People are on their way to check the grandchild's show, or catch up with another person, so we don't have them captive. But I didn't mention the other thing. We are doing some in-service training. We have a second grant this year. It's a different grant, but we're going to be training more occupational therapists out in the community to be able to better identify this group and provide better services to them. And I'm thinking that maybe we ought to be able to take them with us to some of the screenings, so that we do some screening and they pick them up and do some things. But again, I think it's going to be a time issue. And it may be that we'll need to go to different kinds of venues to really get people's attention, or we might have to hit them several times before they're aware of it. I think that's a great idea.
To add to that, Ron, and Meg and I were talking about this morning, I think our greatest opportunity to do that is at our farm science review, yes, where we have thousands of farmers there over a 3-day period. And just logistically, it works out well because the arthritis screenings are in a building that has the universal design home and garage area in it. And we're working on expanding that to include the barn and things like that. But right across the walkway is our AgrAbility display where we'll be doing AT show and tell. So I think just that will be our golden opportunity to really put the whole thing together.
And the garden is right in between.
Yes, and the garden's there too, because that's what we were talking about after the garden session a little bit ago, some of the things that we could do to also provide information there. Yeah, Paul?
Karen, how did you initiate your workshop with the Amish community?
We've had, D. Jepson's always had a great relationship with the Amish. And one of the things that really kind of came into play is I've got a very good working relationship with the Northeast Ohio Arthritis Foundation. They cover about 20 counties in Northeast Ohio. I think they would have me stay up there if I could. But they were the ones that originally said, the lady that takes care of Geauga County, she originally came to me and said, I've really got this great idea, how can we pull it off? And we have those Amish, that communication with the Amish community in Geauga County. The United Way also got involved, and they have a good relationship with the Amish community in Geauga County. Then we got the county educator involved. And between the 4 of us, 5 of us, and knowing the farmers in that community, and we were able to really kind of put that together. Like I said, what really surprised us was then they came back to us and said, you know what, this is a great idea. Let's open it up to the rest of the community. And so it's really going to be a countywide event. So yeah, it was a collaborative effort. And it goes back to who you've built relationships with in the past.
Is it going to focus specifically on arthritis?
It's going to be specifically on arthritis. We're going to have a few ag safety things, but its primary focus is on arthritis.
I think we've come to the end, yes, of the
sure,
session now.
Yes.
So
we want to give the others.
Yeah, I'd like to thank Kent and Meg for their presentation and for coming here today. Thanks very much.
Thank you.